What's going on, everybody? This is Chris K from Burning the Red Shirt podcast here with Andrew P. Katz, episode 38. And the key focus for this one will be all 2023 stuff, partially because we're putting this out late and we don't want 7 people to listen and then move on to the next week. But also, I think like at this point in the season, Andrew, and you can kind of maybe confirm or deny, like some of the storylines are kind of stale, like all the fun stuff, like everything's been decided. I think part of the excitement of fantasy is like predicting good and bad and all that type of stuff. And at this point, everything is kind of figured out, except for like
Yeah.
obviously DFS. But is the season kind of stale for you, or is it still exciting, or what's your stance on how you feel about the rest of this fantasy season?
It's a good question because I was going to surprise you with a question of how your 2022 has gone and put you on the spot, but you kind of took it in that direction anyway, which is fine. But with respect to how the season's gone, so I definitely want to do a reflection article in the next week or two for Kyle's Burner website, what Brandon Chicken or whatever it's called. Just basically looking back at all my horrific predictions and taking L's left and right. So that'll be exciting. I spread myself so thin, which is bad in a lot of ways and good in others, in the sense that once one door closes, there's lots of others open between DFS, betting, player props, season long, best ball, right? So season long largely is closed for me at this point. In managed leagues, I was in 7. I've only got one still alive in the semifinals after I lost a couple of tough, close quarterfinals last week, one by 2 points, one by 5. Just incredibly frustrating. When it comes to setting playoff lineups, I talked about it last time, how I'll just largely go with my gut, and my gut totally effed me this week. In looking back, I did so many stupid things that were just totally unnecessary when it comes to who I decided to start versus who I decided to sit. Completely indefensible in hindsight. So I reaped what I sowed. My 2022 overall, I guess it's been pretty good. Season long managed leagues isn't going to be amazing. Best ball, I should, even though I'm not doing really anything in the champion series that we allocated so much time to. I'm making a late run, but I'm not going to really. I might take down one of the 12 leagues, but I'm not going to do anything in the overall. But best ball overall, I think I should come out ahead. I'm pretty close to wrapping up the Roto World P5 league, even though I drafted under a different set of rules than everyone else. Good
karma. You allowed for us to change the rule, and good karma came your way.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, I guess. I think I should net like 50% profit on best ball, though, which is fine. But betting, player props, all that kind of FanDuel, DraftKings type stuff, DFS, all that's been really good to me this year. I've cooled on DFS over the last month or two just because I felt like my edge was gone as the season progressed, as it tends to do every single year. But I'm excited to ramp up DFS for bowl season because it feels like we really hit the reset, where so much of the that data that so many people outside of myself tend to lean upon as the season progresses, it all gets thrown out the window. So we're back at square one, which is where I want to be. So last bowl season, after lighting a bunch of money on fire in the second half of the season, I decided to limp into bowl season. I was basically just maxing $1 contests and ended up over $1,000. So this year, yeah, I want to play more. I want to play more of like the maxing the 4, the 6, the $12 type tournaments, because I feel like bowl season, it leans nicely into my skill set and where I excel. So I want to try and take advantage of that. So, I mean, similar to so many things that a certain subset of our population dislike about college football when it comes to injuries and stuff, bowl season, there's so much of that, but I don't know. I love that shit. It's my favorite part. So I'm really looking forward to it, to turning page on the regular season and getting to bowl season. How's your 22 been?
It kind of similar to yours. Like I'm in like maybe 5 or 6 essentially like season long type stuff, whether it's redraft or dynasty. And the only one that's remaining is the Burning the Red Shirt League we created.
Oh yeah,
our team is doing good in that one. I like our team there. The industry one, I lost by 1.7 and had Gibbs and Addison, which was frustrating. And then in the other league, it wasn't even close, the Winning Edge League. So
The one
it is, the one you're in. Best balls, I was going to make a point about best balls. Like, I'm in the Champion Series, I'm like with you. I'm like in the middle of the pack. I have like a couple really awful teams. It's just straight killing me. But I'm winning 2 of the leagues. And I think I'll hold on. So like it's almost like to a point where I'm like, if I can just break even on best ball stuff, it's a win. Because I got entertainment in the off season and I'm not losing money. So I'm fine with breaking even, although I think I'll probably be up minimally. But fall season, you make a good point. It's fun because you're back to square one with research and data. Like people are going to sit that you know about. People are going to sit randomly. People are going to sit at halftime. I'll never forget that Oklahoma State receiver that just stopped playing at halftime, which was just incredible. A couple years. Yeah, Tylan Wallace. Incredible. And he was on fire. Like he was having a great game. Maybe because they knew he was only playing one half but like I think it's fun for 2 reasons. One, you get that refresh, you start back over, but it's also like 10 or 14 days of nothing. You know, you have the SEC championship. That whole weekend is like incredible. You have like the best of the best. The next week you have like the fun Army Navy game, but I don't really play it because those are just so unpredictable just because they use 45 guys on offense. But then you get kicked back into some real degenerate stuff, which is always fun to watch. But I can't complain. DFS has been good, nothing crazy. But 2 years ago was just awesome. But
the first Saturday of bowl season is a top 10 slate where we always night cap it with the New Orleans Bowl, right? And you've got like 4 others that kind of, and the sites usually actually do a full day slate for the days that have multiple bowl games, which is rare, right? We never get slates in DFS that kind of span the entire day, so that's another thing about bowl season that I love, that you can have a game going off at noon, a game or two at like noon or 2:30, and then that slate might drag until a 7-8 p.m. start. So you can actually think about where you're at, what you need to do if you are in like the top 10 in a tournament, spend the actual time to think about what I need to do from a game theory perspective, which is fun.
It's not built for the casuals to an extent because you do have to kind of be around. You have to kind of pick and choose. You know what I'd really like for DraftKings and FanDuel to do in all facets of the season would be like this week we had 2 games on Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday, 1 yesterday, 2 tonight. Well, this is all recorded, but whatever. But it'd be great to kind of combine a couple days. Like, why not just combine all of MACtion together?
They'll never do it again.
They'll never do it. I think they used to, though, way back when, right?
They did. And we need do you remember when we had those like New Year's Day?
Oh yeah. Those were great.
Yeah, that was the greatest thing. It started on New Year's Day and it went up through the Natty, right? It was like that big tournament or whatever.
And now we have the Bowl Bash to replace it.
We need a third DFS site to pop up to compete and kind of look to take advantage of stuff like that. But I don't think we'll ever see it again with DraftKings and FanDuel.
I think those are the 2 players, at least for football, like college football. For NFL, you might see something. I think I've seen like random sites pop up, but if I can't get big action on a college football slate on DraftKings, I'm not going to get it anywhere. But
totally.
All right, let's pivot into 2023. We have a couple random topics. I think the one that I was most interested in was predicting the first round in 2023. I gave you a couple of days notice, so we are doing this atypical. We thought about stuff before joining this conversation. I have created a top 10 of sorts, which makes it really hard is figuring out who returns, who doesn't, which I think we could have fun talking about today. But I have 10 guys that are pretty much all guaranteed to come back. Have you thought deeper into this, or should you just discuss what I think is a top 10?
Which do you think it is?
It's going to be my top 10.
Yeah, exactly.
That's perfectly fine. So, all right. So I have 10 guys. I have 3 quarterbacks. Let's see, 2 receivers and 5 running backs. Quarterbacks would be Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Austin Reed. I think those are like the 3 quarterbacks that will pop up in the first round. Running backs, I got Quinshawn Judkins, Braylon Allen, Travion Henderson, Deuce Vaughn. I think that's 4. So I miscounted, whatever. Receivers, Marvin Harrison, Xavier Worthy, Malachi Corley. Now, there's a ton of dudes that are great that we don't know for a fact, right? Like, let's see, I think like Keaton Mitchell could be a guy that creeps in the first round. Like if Josh Downs for some reason stayed, if Jalen Hyatt stayed, those are all guys I would consider first rounders. But let's not get a little crazy. What do you think? First thoughts on that top 10?
The Western Kentucky guys. I guess I haven't been paying that close attention to that team because I didn't draft anyone on the team, I think, the entire year. Has Corley really been that good?
He's been a little inconsistent, and I think the reason why he hasn't been like as huge of a player was because their offense isn't the same. Like Reed is producing the crazy numbers because he has like 6 rushing touchdowns. You take that stuff away, and the passing stuff is a little spread out, and it's just not as high the volume wise. Do you think Corley is too high? Maybe I thought that was like my last guy in.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at the stats, but I do. I mean, I remember him having some really big games, right? But he also had lots of duds. So I don't know how statistically driven was this, and I ask from the perspective of we need to remember when we talk about Western Kentucky through the lens of 2022 that they had that extra game, and so they're gonna. Players who played in every game, which I think Reed and Corley both did, their stats are going to be a little bit inflated. When you're thinking about one year to the next, it probably doesn't have that big of an impact, but just when you're reflecting about standing relative to 2022, like that's pretty material. Looking at their schedule next year is so funny. Right now it's only 4 games. They are at Ohio State. They play a team that I don't know what it is from the acronym, or the logo, the HCU Huskies. Who is HCU?
That's a great question. HCU.
Oh, is this Houston Baptist rebranded? I think it is.
Gotta be.
Yeah.
Houston Christian University?
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Is that what they are now?
Yeah, that's what it is. And I guess that's a make good for stealing Kitley from them. Kitley and Zappy, like, here's a favor, we'll do a buy game with you.
Wow, they are the Houston Christian Huskies.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would be sketched about Corley for sure. Reed, I don't know. I haven't watched him play at all. I guess the stats are awesome, but I feel like I would probably end up taking someone else.
I think quarterbacks are a little difficult because, like, I think looking back at 2022. There were some drafts we had 1, there were some we had 3, there were some that we had 0. Like it was really kind of people doing different strategies and stuff. So I think Drake May is like a lock unless he does something real stupid.
He's number 1 overall, right?
Goes somewhere weird, but like I would think that he's got to be. And to talk about my thought process and how I did this, pretty analytical and in depth. So I'll dumb it down for everybody. I went to Fantrax.com. I went to quarterbacks. I sorted by fantasy points per game. And then I, based on my level, when I saw their points per game, is how I ranked them.
Nice.
So nothing crazy. I mean, Corley's going to end with like 80 catches and 1,100 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns. So it's still pretty top notch. If like a guy like Xavier Worthy isn't going to have those crazy numbers, but I included him. There's thought that he transfers.
Did you see the Braylon Allen transfer rumors as well?
Of course I did. Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah.
I mean, Braylon Allen in Michigan would be. I mean, Braylon Allen in Michigan or Wisconsin is a top 10 pick for me. Like, it just is so consistent.
Why don't you have Will Rogers in your first round?
Well, he's going to do the same thing as he did this year if he's at Mississippi State.
If
I have talked more recently about him transferring, and if that's the case, it's not going to be better. Right? Like he would move for NFL draft purposes, not to produce better numbers.
Where's he going?
We can't talk we don't want to dive too much into this. Nate's going to talk about this on an article
all right, fine.
for King's Game. But Will Rogers is mine, so it's all fair game for me. I won't talk about anybody else. I have 3 teams in mind. Washington, which is a little bit off the wall because he's a Mississippi, like he's literally from Mississippi. So like, does he want to go West Coast? But I mean, look at what happened with Michael Penix. Like, that's a pretty great situation to go to for a quarterback. Like if you can make Penix like a legitimate prospect, second, third, fourth rounder, then like I think any quarterback from anywhere should be interested. Wake Forest, there is thought that he has played he will be playing his final games for Wake Forest.
Hartman, he said he's done.
And then Virginia, because there's thought that Brennan Armstrong might transfer. But I know that that Nate wants to talk about Armstrong potentially, so I'll leave it at that. But I think in either of all those offenses, he's still a good option. But like considering how good he is at Mississippi State, like it's not going to get better. But do you think I missed anybody off the top of your head? Do you think I missed anyone? I have Marvin Harrison, Austin Reed, Caleb Williams, Judkins, Travion, Worthy, Braylon, Malachi, Deuce.
Effing Travion, man. What a disappointment this year.
You hitched your wagon pretty hard on that one.
Yeah,
that
worked out really well.
That one felt like a little bit of a stretch. He's obviously going to be back. Is there a shot that like he gets dinged up again and then you see him just not play 4 games because Ohio State doesn't need to push it?
Who knows? So I'm looking at the list that you sent and a couple of things that here. Let's pivot this slightly. Do you think is JSN definitely gone?
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone keeps saying first round for him. It's weird though. Like he hasn't done anything in over a year, but
yeah.
I mean, I guess we haven't seen that necessarily impact a lot of players too much. Like Derek Stingley didn't do anything for like 2.5 years, and then he went 3rd overall. So it's whatever. What do you think?
I wonder how much players like Travion and JSN are like, I appreciate you caring for my health, coach, but like I came to play football, like not rest up for Michigan.
Well, the JSN thing is so weird because he recently, like within the past few weeks, sought an opinion from like an outside doctor or something. So I gather that he's like not super pleased with what's going on there and the treatment which is so weird. I just assume that like all these programs like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State have the world-class facilities, world-class doctors. It's like, why do you need to go to get a second opinion on like a hamstring pull?
I would think that he wants to play so bad and he's tired of, think about it. A guy like him wants to play because he's trying to make sure he's a first rounder. He probably looks elsewhere because he's like, coaches are holding me back. They just want me to be 100% for Michigan and they don't need him, right? Like they just blow teams out because they have Harrison and Nemeka. So I could see him being upset about it. And same with like Travion. Travion's been unimpressive to me this year.
No, he's been awful. Yeah, like he hasn't even looked that good when he's been on the field. You are in the list that you initially came up with before paring it down. I think you're right to have both Marshall running backs on the list for initial consideration. I assume neither made it to the final cut just because we have no idea what's going to happen there. Like I assume everyone has another year. It's my rule of thumb. When you were talking about Penix before, I assume we could find a year for him. I assume we could find a year for LeBourne, even though I think like he was like class of 2016 or something. But who knows? Like that is so interesting, right? What's going to happen with Rasheen Ali? What's going to happen with LeBourne? And what, like you would think if only one of them is there next year, that person has to be in round 1 consideration.
Yeah, I'll let Nate slack me after he listens to this to let me know the current status of LeBourne. He's technically played 3 FBS seasons, but one was FSU and he didn't play. He just was on the team. Then I think he went like JUCO, right?
Yeah, but
so he might.
There's also 2021. Doesn't the COVID year probably plays some factor in there too, right?
Yeah. So who knows his availability? But like, let's talk a couple of receivers that I think would be locks for first round if they come back would be Jalen Hyatt and Josh Downs. But there's no way they come back, right?
Downs, you would think, is gone. Hyatt, who knows? But would it be that surprising if the feedback he got was great job turning your insane gifts into production? We still see you being an idiot on the field sometimes, and you still drop a zillion passes. Go prove it for another year and turn that second or third round into a first round.
Well, I wonder how much he's not like a big guy, right? Like Josh Downs is small, but he's super elusive, like JSN is. But like I could see NFL. I mean, NFL loves taking 5-6 receivers in the first round, but like this class is going to be pretty loaded between like Hyatt, if he goes, Downs, Quentin Johnston. You have like
Addison, like Boutte, JSN.
Right, Addison, right, and then like you even have like some fringe guys like Puka. I think Puka's kind of played his way into like relevancy in the draft. You know, does A.T. Perry go, and what do people think of him? Like, I wonder if Hyatt says, "Well, Joe Milton's got the greatest arm this side of the Mississippi. Maybe I do it one more time."
Where Puka needs to come back for a couple more years, I think. He needs some more seasoning. Needs to prove he can stay healthy.
I mean, when you're 27, the only thing you can do is prove that you're better than 21-year-olds.
Yeah. What round is Joe Milton going in drafts next year?
So I made a bet when Joe Milton was on Michigan. I made a bet with a buddy that he would get drafted at some point in his career. I still think he does. I think if he were to leave and go pro right now, he could get drafted because his arm is insane, right? Like, I mean, it's just incredible. So I think he could be like a 6th or 7th rounder right now. I think next year he could play his way into like second, third round.
Have you watched any of the garbage time with him this year?
Just the insane replays.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but every game that nets out that way, you look at the stat box and he's like 3 or 4 for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
With like a 68-yard bomb to Squirrel. Like, I think if it's a blowout, if the game is going into the game, it's a blowout for Tennessee. That's like the projection. I think you have to consider Squirrel right at like 3.5K because he's catching a 60-yard bomb.
Who is that? I don't know the name.
Squirrel White is they're like it's like Marquevius, I think. White, true freshman. He's tiny. He's got to be like 5'9", $160, but he's like it was a pretty big recruit. Nothing insane, but a good recruit. Yeah. And he's gotten. I'll pull up his stats in a second here, but every time he throws a touchdown, it's to Squirrel.
That's so funny. The Milton Squirrel stack next year.
I mean, he's fast enough to make it happen. He's got 12 catches for 259 and a touchdown this year. He had a 58-yard catch against Missouri, 64-yard touchdown against UTM, a 47-yard catch against Akron. And these aren't like catch and runs. These are like almost like when you play like catch with yourself type throws, like where you just throw it as high and long as you can and you run under it. That's what it kind of feels like. But Bo Nix, do you think Bo Nix comes back?
He has another year, like everyone else.
Like everybody else, he has another year. He was a true junior last year, so he's a true senior now, which means 2020 year gives him one more.
So we're assuming he's out this week. And then what's he got left? He's got the Civil War. I've given up trying to figure out what the what actually happens in terms of what teams get into the Pac-12 championship. I assume Oregon somehow gets there though.
It feels like Oregon. It's between Oregon, Utah, USC, right?
Pretty much. There's 33 scenarios. One of them results in Washington getting in, and a few of them result in UCLA. But yeah, I think he goes. Dude, I saw the corollary drawn by some draft nerd or someone said like if Kenny Pickett can go in the first round of the draft, like doesn't Bo Nix have to leave now and become a first rounder too? That is, I mean, those are your two boys. So it makes a lot of sense, right?
Tides have turned. People are now very pro Bo Nix and as like a second, third, fourth round prospect. I feel like I'm starting to see more positive stuff. It used to be the joke was that whole like Heisman joke.
Yeah.
Dark horse contender for the Heisman, like, in the off season stuff. And now it's completely turned, but I don't know. I think one of the interesting points of like the offseason will be, do you make more money going to the pros or staying back? And I think like Bo Nix isn't a great example. Like, Nike is Oregon. Does Nike pull some NIL? I mean, like they could pay literally whatever they wanted, right? Like if you're Phil Knight, you saw Ty Thompson, and if Ty Thompson plays against whomever, who do they Oregon plays? Utah?
Yeah.
And he sucks. Like if you're Phil Knight, you just open up the pocketbook, right? You open up the checkbook and make it happen.
You would think that's how it works, and I'm surprised. It felt like we didn't see that last offseason, and there was no reason that we shouldn't have. But maybe with people getting more comfortable about what they can do and get away with or whatever within the rules. Hopefully we see it more this year. I think that would be a fun thing to follow and to see actually play out. And just from an analysis perspective, like it sucks, dude, when we see so many of our favorite CFF players, like as soon as the NFL draft list ends, that list comes out of guys who left early and didn't get drafted. And it's like, dude, these guys would have been first round CFF picks. And it's disappointing from that angle, but also like now that they're fucked, like their lives could have been so much better and it could have been better for everyone. Now it's
hopefully those fringy guys don't feel like they have to go to the NFL and they stay back, even if it's for a $50K deal, right? Like, so I'm curious with, who got paid last offseason, like big time, right? Like Jordan Addison was the big one. And then I guess technically he still hasn't gotten paid. I think that's like a big conspiracy, but like, I think people seeing these types of transfers happen and nobody get in trouble is kind of like, okay, well, now that maybe I'll try it. So we might get some crazy stuff, but I think the other guy that kind of fits in that same mold is Jaden Daniels. He has to stay, right? Like stay and make money.
You would think so. I haven't read anything up on what his draft stock looks like, but I couldn't imagine it's that great at this point. The idea, right, is that there's largely just 2 QBs in this class, and then doors open for QB3, QB4. But is that interesting if we're talking about like round 5, 6 in the NFL draft versus if LSU, presumably limited or unlimited money, could just throw him a few milli to chill and try and to make some moves next year?
Yeah. I think that's like the easiest one to predict. He just hasn't, Nix has some different skill sets that I think like definitely put him in conversations. But Daniels, I mean, if he did have an NFL future in this draft, it's gone after last week's game. Did you see that game, LSU Arkansas?
I watched it for a little bit because I started Malik Hornsby. So
of course,
yeah, that was really smart. It went pretty much as well as I probably should have expected. But it seemed like such a fun idea for while I was inserting him into my lineup. But yeah, the whole game just seemed like a miserable experience. The turnovers, players running around, quarterbacks running around in circles and getting sacked and stripped and stuff like that. So, but I wasn't really paying too much attention when LSU had the ball.
They were pretty awful. And my favorite part of it was they had like all these hot drinks on the sideline. Did you see that grab?
Yeah,
it was coffee, chicken soup. That's the one I was looking for. I was like, what? Chicken soup? I heard that with there's a classic Notre Dame Joe Montana story about chicken soup. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
They're playing in a big bowl game against Houston. It's freezing. Joe Montana has played awful. He's got like hypothermia. He's so cold. He goes into the locker room at halftime and has a bowl of chicken soup and gets warm and brings them back and scores like 20 points to win against Houston. So back in, I think that was probably like the 70s, but giving you some historical knowledge there. 2 running backs I think are super interesting that I think pre this season felt like locks to be going to the pros, that I think now the doors have opened for them to maybe transfer or stay at their respective school. Lou Nichols and Zach Evans. What are your thoughts on if they transfer, if they go pro? Do you have a lean?
I feel like with Evans, he's so done with college that no matter what sort of feedback he gets, he's just going to go and see what happens at the pro level. And he feels like the kind of player that is just going to be so much more successful at the NFL level than he was in college.
Where it's just straight business. Who cares what you do off the field in a sense?
Yeah, it felt like he had a lot of just some bad luck in some cases with respect to health. You can't take me seriously because I will never admit that Judkins is better than Evans in any capacity. Nichols, you watched you had the unfortunate viewing experience of watching Maction the last few weeks, right?
Correct.
How done with that whole thing is Jim McElwain? Like, that dude looks miserable every second he's on the Central Michigan sideline. I don't know if he's actually involved in like that. Their game plans are super smart, the way that they kind of adapt relative to skill sets and injuries and stuff like that. So props to them for reeling off. I can't remember. Did they lose that game to Western Michigan this week, or did they pull it out at the last second? It was a god awful game, but
it was brutal.
Yeah,
it was rough. They won 12-10.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, they lost 12-10. They lost 12-10.
Yeah, I feel like Nichols has to probably be done with them in some capacity, right? And maybe it's transferring. That I think that would make more sense than going straight to the pros. Like, what could he realistically expect if he tries to enter the draft at this point? He had a pretty miserable season.
I think if there's a guy that I would peg as like superstar name in CFF that'll be like the biggest bust for next year is Lou Nichols. I think he's just a volume guy at the end of the day. And he's like, and I think part of this is like when you get 40 touches a game and you put up decent yards per carry numbers and stuff like that, like you get beat up, your body is broken.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is there a guy that pops for you that's like a stud or a higher known guy that you think, not next year?
Chase Brown, maybe. I don't know if he has another year.
I'm sure he's got another year.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. It'll be interesting to see what he does. I was kind of into him last year or maybe 2 years ago when he initially came over from Western Michigan, but unfortunately I did not draft him at all this past year. But it feels like things have broken really great for him on a number of fronts this year. So even if he's back next year, I'd probably be hesitant.
Feels like an overdrafted guy potentially. He was at Western Michigan 2018, barely played 2019, and then there's 2020. So as long as he didn't play in like special teams for a bunch of games that year in 2019, he's got another year, it looks like.
He could be a good example of a guy taking a couple million to come back, though.
Do you think Illinois would do that, or do you think he'd have to go somewhere else?
Why wouldn't they?
Someone said on the CGC Slack the other day, and I think this is fairly comparable. It was like, do you think the Vanderbilt coach gets fired? And I said, why would Vanderbilt ever fire a football coach? Like, why would you ever pay a buyout? Why would you ever have 2 contracts on the hook for you? You're Vanderbilt football. Like, do you really need to spend money on football? Like, in the same vein, Illinois is a basketball school historically. And I just don't know if they're going to pay something crazy.
That's fair. There's no way the Vanderbilt coach gets fired, though. They just had that big win. I understand a lot of what Vanderbilt is doing seems like it is big picture stuff. They hired that dude from 247 to like manage the whole NIL process years early. So they're thinking big picture, like not necessarily on immediate results. And I think along the same vein, when they pulled the plug on Mike Wright after like week 3, that was like the idea is, oh, we've got this recruit that we love. We've been prepping him, and now we're going to turn him loose and start to get his feet wet in actual games, with the idea being this is going to pay dividends down the road. And I'm so happy that that's not really the case because Mike Wright did not deserve to lose his job, and he just engineered the biggest win for the program in the last 7-8 years since James Franklin was there, right?
Mhm.
That he's do you think he stays or goes now? That they're going to continue to try and make AJ Swan happen, right? So
Yeah, Mike Wright's gone. Yeah. If I'm Mike Wright, I'm like, okay, so I played well, I got benched. I came in and played decent, and then I came in and got us a big win. Like, why would I ever trust this coaching staff again? That's another guy that we'll talk about next week.
Who? All right. You almost described the exact same story as what's playing out at West Virginia with Garrett Green. What do you think happened? Who do you think goes higher in fantasy drafts next year? And where are they playing? Mike Wright or Garrett Green?
I think Garrett Green stays at West Virginia.
Because they can Neil Brown and they bring in a real coach.
That, or I think Garrett Green is similar but different at the same time. Like, Garrett Green never was the quarterback and never got benched.
Yeah.
He just should have been put as the quarterback earlier. But so there are similarities, some potential distrust in coaching staff.
Did you watch any of that West Virginia Oklahoma game?
He looked good.
Yeah, he did.
He looked good. I mean, his passing numbers were good. He looked like he knew what he was doing. It wasn't like a typical running quarterback that comes in. That's a bad.
He was like doing a ton of improv stuff, but it wasn't just all right. I'm gonna call my own number a zillion times. Like it was Bo Nixie kind of, right? He was
I was literally just thinking that. I was wondering if you'd say it. It was Bo Nixie. It's a little bit of chaos in the pocket, a little bit of improv, and then just enough like. I think sometimes too, like both of those guys, at least Bo at Auburn, it was like he should have thrown it when he should have run it, or when he ran it, and he should have ran it when he threw it. Like sometimes, but he got so much better at that at Oregon with, I don't know, 10 different positive upticks in his lifestyle. And who was the other guy? Mike Wright. I think Mike Wright's good as gone. I think Green stays at West Virginia, and Wright could go a various number of places.
Yeah.
I would. The toughest call is whether guys just go like, do they go to P5 transfer, or do they go down? Not down, but to the group of 5 type.
Yeah. I like, we always want to send these fun athlete QBs to the MAC, but realistically, these guys are in the SEC. Like, that doesn't make more sense to send them to the Sun Belt instead.
AAC, Sun Belt.
Yeah.
You have some alternative options that are really pretty good. You know who's got another year of eligibility? And I swear to God, he's been in college football for 12 years. Quarterback, Mike Bainbridge's favorite player until he was good, and then he disowned him. Spencer Sanders has another year of eligibility.
It's awesome. I'm so here for it.
The fact that he had like literally posted identical stat lines his first 2 seasons at Oklahoma State will never be forgotten. And dude is just, what happened with that whole fiasco? Did you see he came back? He came in the game after being told he was out. Like everybody said, yeah, he's not playing. And then he came in the game.
Yeah, there's my read on Oklahoma State generally the past few weeks, maybe even more than that, the last month and a half, is that the confluence of injuries and just bad luck that's kind of rained down on the program has just derailed their season in a way that you haven't really seen that in most programs. My boy Gundy, I think, has done a decent job like holding the fort together outside of the Kansas State debacle, just keeping them competitive in games with the number of injuries that they've had is a testament to how good of a coach and how good of a job that coaching staff has done. Post game, they basically said like, yeah, like we really didn't want to get Spencer in the game. Like he hasn't practiced basically in weeks. But I mean, I guess with Rangel being out, right, and Gundy saw how his son was playing, and he was like, "All right, Spencer, can you get in there?" And I mean, that, which is so unfair, right? You know, the kid's always going to say yes. Like their adrenaline's probably through the roof on game day. You want to help your team, so who knows what injuries he's dealing with, but I'm sure he was at a ton of risk and just not even close to healthy. But it's awesome.
I mean, the dude is straight badass. Like,
Yeah,
just
I don't think
body on the line.
Like, I've read way too many Oklahoma State interviews with Gundy and Sanders and basically anyone in the program trying to pick up information. And because Gundy says so little, that's actually actionable. So you got to really, if you're trying to learn about the program, you got to really try and read the tea leaves. And Spencer just feels to me like after his last game, he's going to get on a horse and just ride out of the stadium and go fishing in the woods and never be heard from again. Like that's the vibe I get from him. And maybe that happens at the end of a bowl game this year.
I think he's a lifer. I think he'll come back for that 5th year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Why wouldn't you? Right? If you have the 5th year, why would? I mean, Spencer Sanders is not an NFL guy.
No.
Why wouldn't you just play another year? I mean, you can, especially now that you can.
I would love it. Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing.
Do you think he would go else? Like, you think he would transfer out? Because like this Rangel guy was a big prospect. I wonder if big recruit.
He's staying. If he continues to play, he's staying.
That's fair.
Yeah.
One decision for the NFL with big fantasy implications would be the Michigan running back group. Blake Corum, if he were to go pro, then Donovan Edwards is your 1A or just straight 1. Do you think Edwards, I think we both agree Corum is going to the NFL. Does he have much left to prove?
No, I feel like out of all the players and all the horrendous takes I've had this year, fading Corum, fading the Michigan running game across the board is my the one that hurts the most. Out of really pure what's the word?
Spite.
No, not that one. The one where I'm like arrogance. That's the one. My greatest trait, pure arrogance, more than anything else. And yeah, I mean, Corum's been incredible. He's been amazing. Do you see it with Edwards in terms of just like as a runner? No.
I was wondering if you would agree or disagree. It's funny to think about, and I got a million takes wrong, so please come at me who I'm about to subtweet here. There were people that thought Donovan Edwards would have a better fantasy season than Blake Corum. And it wasn't, there was a great comparison in a sense would be like the Jaquavius Marks, Dylan Johnson conversation of like, hey, don't take Marks, just take Dylan Johnson 8 rounds later, which the same guys actually had the same point and they nailed it. In my opinion, that was the perfect move to do. But like Edwards and Corum were getting taken back to back almost. Yeah. And sometimes Edwards first. I think Edwards has been surprisingly underwhelming. He looks like one of those just great in the NFL, like a Zach Evans, where he really fits the NFL mold better because he's so good in the passing game and he's just a very solid runner. But like Blake Corum is kind of the opposite, right? Like he's fine in the passing game. He's not awful, but he makes his money in between the tackles. So I don't think Edwards is really that good fit.
What about Stokes? Is Stokes legit?
I would say Stokes is like a thinner version of Corum. I like Stokes. Yeah. Stokes has looked good to me all season. He is 5'10", 196. And let's see how big Corum is. Let's see how close I was. Corum is just like thick. He's just built thick. He's 5'8", 210. So I don't know. I think Stokes isn't necessary. I think Stokes is closer to like an Edwards in terms of like than he would be like a Corum, but I think he'll be successful. It just won't be the same run game.
You see Braylon Allen going to Michigan?
I don't know. I will keep speaking about it because I'm hoping, but I don't think there's any way. I've read some stuff on it and there's concerns about like, Michigan only allows like 60 credit hours to be taken over, which I'm sure Allen did summer school and stuff. He's probably at like 75 or 80 credits. So like, then you fall into this, like, does a guy want to get rid of credits? Does he qualify if he's at 60? He might, considering he's going to be a true junior. I don't know. Is there a lot of benefit for Allen to go to Michigan over staying at Wisconsin?
Depends how much he's getting paid.
I mean, besides money, right? Like, it's not like Will Rogers where like if he were to go to a real passing offense, like there's a benefit.
Yeah.
Allen at Wisconsin is going to be doing the same thing as he is at Michigan. So why leave?
Well, you saw the Allen USC rumor too, right?
I did not see that one. Now that one would
fun.
make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Could you imagine Lincoln Riley with a bruiser, big running back, and then Caleb Williams, like the most savant quarterback with an incredible arm?
Yeah. It would be awesome. Just total payback for Wisconsin talking to Caleb Williams during his transfer period.
Lincoln would do that too. Lincoln would 100%,
1,000%
make a move. He's like, I don't even like Braylon Allen. Doesn't fit the scheme at all, but screw Wisconsin. They don't ever talk to my quarterback. But yeah, so I guess the only other thing for 2023 we haven't talked about, and I don't have a whole lot, so maybe this will be quick, is any Galaxy Brain coaching changes, any firings, any interesting conversations we haven't talked about. I mean, I think everybody's talked about Auburn and Dion 100 times, but anybody else, any other connections?
I think Texas A&M stays status quo. Everyone gets really upset about that. The only possible change is like, do they do anything with respect to offensive coordinator? Who knows, right? But Jimbo's still there, so I don't know why we continue to waste our time and our energy talking about it outside of people like to be outraged. But I don't know. Nothing off the top of my head, really. What do you got?
I don't really have anything too fancy. Georgia Tech is open. Everybody seems to think in the C2C group that Chadwell from Coastal is like the perfect hire for that. And he could probably just bring his quarterback. Do you think that's about as good as a fit as Georgia Tech can get?
I don't know, man. Grayson McCall said he pisses teal. You can't say that and then just go to Atlanta. Even though
it's a medical condition that does not get resolved overnight by going to Georgia Tech, apparently. I picked up Zach Pyron in a couple leagues. Do you know who that is?
He kind of looks like you, doesn't he?
If he's a ginger, I swear.
I think he is. Because I think your boy Austin from C2C.
Oh,
he was a big Pyron fan during the recruiting process, and I was so upset that Jeff Sims's credentials were being questioned in any capacity.
He is redheaded for sure, but he rocks like a goatee and a stash.
Okay,
and I just could never pull that off.
Fair.
It's close enough, though. I'll give you that. I thought he looked pretty decent for a true freshman.
He was highly rated. I'm surprised that the C2C guys haven't enlightened you on this. He was a big time recruit. It was a good get, but
I think sometimes they hold back on me.
Yeah, maybe
but he's gotten a lot of rush usage. If it is Chadwell, that feels like a perfect kind of mold, like the perfect. I think. Do you think coaches kind of look at who the quarterback is? Like, do you think a coach like Chadwell looks at Georgia Tech and says, like, yeah, ACC, great city, great recruiting area. You have to fight off Georgia, which is whatever, but like you have to fight off a lot of schools, period. And I have like a pretty decent looking young quarterback, or do you think that's irrelevant with the transfer portal?
It's a great question. I would think that there is like coaches definitely give consideration to the short term in terms of what the roster looks like and stuff like that. Because unless you're really in lockstep with the AD on like a 3, 4, 5 year plan, did you ever read about Scott Loeffler at Bowling Green? He basically, when he was at Boston College or something before Bowling Green, and when he was in discussions to take the Bowling Green job, he was not going to take the job until he had like total buy-in from the program on he was like, hey, your roster is shit. This whole program's garbage. I need 5 years to get you to the point where it's just a passable passable grade of football, and I'm not taking this job unless I get buy-in to that extent, which just feels like so rare that that you could actually get that sort of that buy-in and it actually is meaningful in any capacity as a coach taking a job. But if you're not, right, and like a lot of places are not, like, you can, even if an AD tells you that, it's BS, just because, like, even like imagine the Auburn athletic director tells you, oh yeah, you have 5 years to turn the program around. Like, that's laughable, right? But
never gonna happen.
Except in certain places where that is plausible, you would have to think that the state of the current state of the program with respect to the roster is a material factor in determining how good the job appears to you on the surface level, right? Because you short-term results are the results that matter for most new coaches at new schools. Maybe you're not on the hot seat, but that seat's warm from day one.
Yeah, I think you have to consider it. You don't get. I mean, if Georgia Tech is firing a guy after, because Collins was what, 3 years. Like, if Georgia Tech's doing it, like, I mean, it's possible anywhere. Like, Auburn's not surprising, right? 2 years of horrible Harsin,
21 games.
Like, that's not a shocker, right? Auburn's a different program than Georgia Tech, at least right now. And if that's going to happen at Georgia Tech, I will tell you, as a Virginia Tech fan, I think largely 80 to 85% of people are still on board with Pry, even though we've been awful, and have blown like 18 and 20-point leads and stuff like that. But there are still people that are like, they can find ways to be like, he needs to go. And he just got here.
I think I would can him.
I think the argument would be, like, show me anything of value on that team. Like, our quarterback is Grant Wells. Our best running back looked really good. The two games
Malachi
played. Malachi looks great, but they have nothing. And I think Fuente left the cupboard so bare. And I think he probably made a bad assistant hire or two, because some of the offensive, like, play calling feels just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think, like, Virginia Tech can't afford, like, our alumni base does not donate like others. Our booster group is not huge. So it'll be interesting. But
are you a booster yet?
I did donate $50 to the baseball team last year.
Oh, nice.
So I do get the postcards.
That's cool.
So cool. Anything you want to wrap up with, or any final 2023 thoughts? Anybody I missed?
No. Looking forward to, the offseason. I look down and laugh at the nerds that are already talking about baseball for next year. And then, we're going to be doing a pod as soon as the national championship game ends, where we're just talking about, like, meta college football shit. So I'm not a hypocrite, but I am looking forward to, like, the offseason in 2023. I think I am looking for some ways to scale back some of the things that I'm doing in the offseason, and even in terms of, like, my weekly workload with respect to CFB in season for next year, just because, like, we potted every single week, but this from national championship game till now. And yeah, I can talk off the top of my head for an hour a week, but I feel like there's other ways that I can try and just give myself a little more of a break in the off season without necessarily compromising my knowledge base. So looking forward to the off season, because it's when we get to do more abstract, more fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be cool. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Speculation's always fun, right? Like like what's going to happen, predictions, things like that. And I think we've hit the point where everything's been decided, like I said earlier. But awesome. Well, glad everybody could listen, all 12 of you. We appreciate you. Like and subscribe and all that jazz, or whatever, right? Zach told me to say that. But have a good one.